This is Jinja City in eastern Uganda, home to Uganda's first hydroelectricity generation station, then known as the Owen Falls, now Nalubale Power Station. Jinja is home to the Nile River, which is a source of livelihood for hundreds of people from Jinja to the Mediterranean Sea, 6,650 kilometers away. The river is a source of water for irrigation, industry, home use, and tourism. It is also a source of fish, with fishing a main economic activity along the banks. The River Nile is also the source of the water that generates power to drive Uganda's industries, offices, and homes. With the existence of the River Nile, it was discovered that Uganda had the potential to produce electricity enough for its citizens and neighbors. In 1954, the Owen Falls Power Station was commissioned by the then Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth II, for this purpose. Its installed capacity is 180 megawatts. In 2000, the Owen Falls Power Station was renamed Nalubale Power Station, and shortly after, the 200 megawatt Kira Power Station was built, bringing the total to 2 power stations across from each other. This gave birth to private-public partnerships, and a new company called Eskom Uganda Limited was introduced to Uganda's electricity generation market. Eskom Uganda Limited is a subsidiary of Eskom Enterprise SOC Limited, the investment arm of Eskom Holdings SOC Limited, the leading electricity utility company in Africa.
When President Nelson Mandela was released from prison, one of the first countries he visited was Uganda, to say thank you to Ugandans. When he was inaugurated, the first black president of South Africa, immediately we opened an embassy here in Uganda. That was May 1994. So over the years, the relationship has been strengthened. So it was not a surprise that Eskom was asked in 2003 to come and assist Uganda when there were challenges with their power station and the plant.
The bulk of the continent was dark, and the chairman then of Eskom, which was Dr. Ruel Khoza, and the CEO then, which was Alan Morgan, and then Tulani Cabashe, was that it cannot be only the southern part has electricity and the bulk of the continent is in darkness. How can we be of help as Eskom to assist countries to get to get stability and reliability of their power? Because without power, the economic growth is hindered.
Eskom Uganda was incorporated in Uganda in 2000, and it entered a 20-year concession agreement on the 1st of April 2003 to operate and maintain 2 government-owned hydropower plants, Nalubale and Kira, whose total installed capacity is 380 megawatts.
When they came in 2003, the plant was not in a good state. As a result, one of my friends, who is a Ugandan, tells me that they used to have breakdowns for 3 to 4 days a week, which was a serious challenge for development and economic growth in Uganda.
When we started in 2003, you would have major equipment failures, about up to 90 per year. We are talking here of equipment that is out for more than 10 hours, and we have since reduced that to an average of a year of about 10.
The board has maintained proper dynamics that have enabled us to effectively and efficiently manage the relationship between us and the asset owner, Uganda Electricity Generation, and the government of Uganda and other key stakeholders. We both understood that there is a political aspect to our business engagement. This has been an experiment and also testimony in the fact that Pan-Africanism can work. The second aspect which the board has provided is on information. Is making sure that most of the decisions at Eskom, almost all, are data-centric. We needed to show clearly, graphically, exactly where we were and where we were going. In many ways, in terms of the water levels, in terms of the outputs expected, in terms of providing verifiable evidence of exactly how we are maintaining the plants, the two of them, and so on. So information, timely, accurate, complete, and rational. That's been the job of the board, to make sure that we steer the informational architecture and infrastructure.
Eskom won the bid to operate and maintain Nalubale and Kira power stations after a competitive bid process by the government of Uganda. A 20-year concession agreement was then signed. This came after the liberalization of the power sector.
Yes, about 20 years ago, the government of Uganda enacted what we term as the Electricity Act of 1999 that triggered what we call the first generation power reforms. And one of the key objectives of those reforms was to privatize a number of entities, but also assets of the government in terms of management and operation. At the time, as part of the reforms, we also unbundled the Uganda Electricity Board to create the Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited, the Uganda Electricity Transmission Company Limited, and the Uganda Electricity Distribution Company Limited. So at the time of that unbundling, we also leased out a number of assets. Some of the assets that were leased out to the private sector was the Kira Nalubale Power Dam.
UEGCL then concessioned out its assets Nalubale and Kira to Eskom Uganda to operate and maintain on their behalf.
Talking about distribution without emphasizing the point of generating power doesn't make sense. So at that time, the government decided to privatize the management of the plant that we had, Nalubale and Kira. And that's how Eskom came in through competitive bidding, and Eskom was chosen to take care of the plant, to make sure that power is generated, but also the plant is maintained. So all that was embedded in the concession. Really, Eskom agreed to, to own up, the plant. And that's what government wanted.
Eskom derives its mandate of generating hydroelectricity from the acquisition of a generation license from the Electricity Regulatory Authority, ERA. It is responsible for overseeing all Eskom work and investments and checking compliance with the generation license it issued.
Well, the ministry oversees the work of the regulator, Electricity Regulatory Authority. And the regulator has been able to, keep the pace with Eskom.
As the sector regulator, I attest confidently that the power station being handed back to government are not in the shape that Eskom received them. Eskom is handing back a far much better power generation complex, pivotal to power affordability, to meet the country's aspirations for socio-economic transformation.
Nalubale Power Plant has 10 power generating units with an installed capacity of 18 megawatts each, compared to Kira, which has 5 generating units each with 14 megawatts, giving a total of 15 operating units with an installed generating capacity of 380 megawatts.
We must at all times 24/7 be generating power. It must be continuous, and at the same time it must be of good quality. Generation at these plants is being regulated by the National Control Center depending on the current demand of the country. So if there is a need to increase more power, these machines at Nalubale are flexible. So we can regulate their load. We can go to a minimum of 6 megawatts. They can go to a maximum of 18 megawatts. So depending on the load, on the demand, that's how we keep on regulating.
To start the process of power, the availability of water is utterly at the center. A water generating permit is issued by the Ministry of Water to regulate the amount of water to be dispensed by the plant at a time. This then determines the amount of hydropower generated.
And when we started also, there were no restrictions of how much water you can abstract from the lake for power generation. So we're able to provide that power easily that was required. Until in 2006, where we experienced a severe drought, and that's when now the water permit was introduced by the Department of Water Resources Management to restrict how much water we can abstract to preserve the lake.
So at cases where the lake levels have gone so high, we need to control these water levels to avoid flooding. We have 6 sluice gates which are opened or closed according to the levels we have and according to the demand. So for us, we calculate how many sluice gates should we open. If we require to open one, we open 1 sluice gate. If there is a need to open 2 or 3, depending on the calculation the controller has calculated. So you just come here, you select whatever gate you want. We have 1 to 6, whatever gate you want, and then you operate. The gate will open, and when someone passes there, you will see the water moving. But when the controls have been done from control room.
The 2 power plants are then connected to the national grid, linking them to the rest of the power generated by power stations including Bujagali, Isimba, and other independent power producers that are transmitted and then distributed across the country. All power generated is sold to UETCL, which is the sole bulk buyer and the electricity grid operator. UETCL then sells all this power to Umeme, the largest distributor, and other distributors for the last mile distribution to consumers.
We have had a good working relationship where we anticipate demand. We ask them how much we need from them on a regular basis. They provide it. And once we have bought it from them, after a certain period, we pay them on time. And we have actually been paying Eskom on time.
How then does power get to the final consumer?
So when I need this power, all this power to reach at your home, we transfer it in terms of voltage. So when you transfer it in voltage, we step it up because we have a longer transmission lines. We step it according to the grid code. We step it from 11 to 33 so that it can reach at your home when you still have that voltage. We calculate all for all those losses. So we have this substation. The importance for us of Uganda to have substations so that we can put there the transformers. These are the equipments which help us to step up the voltage, to boost the voltage, to boost so that that power electricity can reach into your home without any losses.
The Uganda Electricity Transmission Company Limited, UETCL, is licensed to carry out construction, ownership, and operation of installations of the high voltage transmission of electricity in Uganda above 33 kV, and among other roles is empowered to purchase power to provide a continuous and economic supply of electricity to meet the load requirement for customers served directly or indirectly at a lowest reasonable cost.
You'll find that the unit cost of their power is like at 1.2 cents US dollars, while the one for Bujagali is at 11 cents, which has of recent come down to around 8 cents a unit. So you can clearly see in terms of cost, the contribution of Eskom's power to the end user has actually been very helpful.
To fulfill its mandate, Eskom Uganda Limited has invested over 194 billion Uganda shillings, $52.9 million in both the Nalubale and Kira power station, with an additional 27 billion Uganda shillings, $6.9 million. Most of this has gone to the 68-year-old Nalubale power station in equipment upgrades and civil structure remediation, and as a result, its lifetime has now been extended for another 25 years, according to independent energy reports.
Looking at the span of the various investments we have undertaken, we're talking about the transformers that we have replaced that had reached their useful life, the governors which balance the power generation that had also reached their useful life, the dam structure itself which had also developed some leakages here and there because over time, which we had to refurbish and make sure that it is sound. Replacement of the cables, the 132 kV cables, which evacuate power from the generators to the substation, and from there it is evacuated to Lugogo at a Uganda Electricity Transmission Company, which then distributes the rest of the country. And when you look at those various investments we have undertaken, by the end of this year, by the end of the year 2022, they had accumulated to 53 million US dollars. And when you compare to what we had been given as a target of 60 million, you see that we had fairly performed at around 88% of the target that the regulator had given us.
Since the commissioning of Nalubale was running under a manual operating system, not until the coming of Eskom when it was upgraded to a digitalized system for both Nalubale and Kira.
When this plant was beginning, in the early 50s, the technology was still low. So we had everything was controlled from that big board. It's called the Mimic board. This is our Mimic board, and this is our diagram, the line diagram, that is indicating the feeders and the generators. For example, this one is called Ginger Industrial 3. Its circuit breaker is here. We have got two sets of bus bars. The reason why we have two sets of bus bars for maintenance, for redundancy. So like if you want to offload Ginger Industrial 3, you could just come here, you open the circuit breaker, you open the line isolator, you open the bus bar isolator, and then works continue. So this is the old setting. Now as technologies go on improving a little bit, they saw that it was tiresome and the Mimic board was too congested. So now they designed another set which is called the control desk, whereby instead of controlling most of the things from the gauge panel and the Mimic board, most of the controls were put on the control desk, whereby you could start this very unit from the control desk. You can control its excitation, you can control its water levels and everything from the control desk. And also we brought all the alarm panel onto this control desk. So from there, as technologies were improving, we went into the SCADA system and also the joint controller. Look at, for example, this is generator 9 and 10. Everything is being viewed from here. You can see the status of the bus bar isolators, you can see the status of the circuit breaker, you can see how much load is having, you can see the system frequency just from a single view. You can do anything you want.
Unit 10 at Nalubale has been undergoing a system upgrade. The unit has been inoperational since 2013 due to a malfunction. With Eskom's experienced staff, the unit has been upgraded to match world digitalized standards.
So unit number 10 has been down for over 10 years. It had a couple of challenges, but Eskom Uganda Limited was able to bring together a team of young engineers, young professionals, together with contractors to see to it that we contribute to Uganda's socio-economic development by giving you yet another unit of 18 megawatts. Among the projects we have done is the governor upgrade, Right next to me, this is the governor panel that we have just commissioned, together with the excitation system and a couple of repairs that were done on the main part of the machine, which is the turbine.
Among the investments is the on-site workshop that handles mechanical repairs and productions. Tusubira Samuel is the longest-serving artisan at the plant with over 19 years experience. Part of his job is to produce machine parts that eventually save the company from millions of dollars in imported parts.
Yeah, this is our raw material. It's a big plate. So what we do, we use gas by design to come out with something like this. Okay? So what we do, we cut the plate according to the design given. So from there, that small part is the one which was removed from here, the rough way. Okay? That big part is the one which was outside here. So from there, we use one of these machines, which is a lathe, okay, to come out with that. What I'm doing now, I'm setting.
Over and around the Eskom premises and the Nalubale and Kira power plants looms a dash of a natural green environment, coupled with clear waters and a breath of fresh air. All these are out of Eskom Uganda'S efforts to protect the environment and conserve natural resources and all life at the water source. This has been done through careful disposal of waste and avoiding water contamination. A wide area has been covered by tree and grass planting to maintain this natural green cover.
We are operating in a very sensitive ecosystem, and one of the things we have to ensure that we don't allow any effluent into the Nile River. One of the projects we implemented was the oil water separator, to make sure that whatever you release is the water, not the oil.
Eskom Uganda Limited subscribes to the ISO 9001-2015. That is a standard that ensures that everything we do is of good quality. Our stakeholders and customers, their requirements are satisfied. That is the quality management system. And then we have the environment management system, ISO 14001, which is basically on environmental conservation, protection of pollution, among others. And then is the ISO 45001-2018, which is purely safety management, and it's aimed at ensuring that there's no injuries that occur to workers when they're working. So I've been participating in implementing the standards, maintaining them, and carrying out an external audit that confirms that indeed Eskom Uganda Limited has implemented and maintained those ISO management systems.
Skills training and enhancement for manpower has been a top priority for Eskom. Young graduates are given opportunities to train in the different fields of the energy sectors, from engineering to management. For a period of 18 months, the graduates will familiarize with the work environment at Eskom, giving their best to the company and the industry. From this arrangement, Eskom retains the creme de la creme of engineer trainees and graduates them to full-fledged engineers capable to perform at full capacity.
One of the key highlights of Eskom is also in leadership development. Eskom was very key in setting up the CEO apprenticeship program, preparing future chief executives. Eskom has been at the forefront of this. Eskom has been also at the forefront of developing directors, people who are going to serve at director level.
As Eskom, there was a deliberate initiative to train, especially the local-based employees. And you find that currently, if you look at by the end of last year, we're saying that over 96% of our employees were Ugandans. And that was a deliberate arrangement that started way back right from the start of the concession, where a lot of skills were imparted in our the JITs that we're taking on every year, the existing employees, secondment agreements to the Eskom group, and over time they gained the necessary technical capability and competence required to continue operating the complex.
What Eskom did is three things. One, it looked at our talent, at our strengths, and started giving us ways of how to educate us, to improve on our learning. Some of them were encouraged to go for diplomas, some of them were encouraged to go for degrees, some of them were taken for exposure, some of them, the engineers, were given FAT, like those small projects you are hearing. You find that if certain equipment is coming from a certain country, somebody is given to go and see that thing from that country, learn about it, then bring it, decide, inspect it at arrival, then implement the project. And one thing, unique thing I saw with Eskom, that it has a business, it has its goals, but it encourages other people down to know what their goals. Then eventually we just dividing what are your roles towards that goal.
I'm Awani Sandra Alum, currently a plant operator. I came in as a plant operator trainee. I had a chance to train in operations department, planning department. I also had a chance to work in the electrical department. It helped me grow in my career.
So I've been working with Eskom for the last 11 years. But before my permanent employment with Eskom, I was still privileged to join Eskom Uganda Limited for industrial training. And since then, I have been with Eskom, growing from just being an engineer to getting registered as a professional engineer with Engineers Registration Board, and continue to serve the company in different capacities.
Yeah, I joined Eskom through its GIT onboarding program. Eskom Uganda Limited has a well-detailed GIT onboarding program. So that's the program via which I was onboarded into Eskom Uganda Limited last year. And that's how I ended up in the GIT role.
As a corporate entity, Eskom Uganda Limited has observed the corporate social responsibility policy with tangible positive impacts on the Ugandan community it has been part of. The lives of mothers and children are at the heart of Eskom.
As a Member of Parliament for Junior Municipality West, I established relationships with the management of Eskom. I interested them in partnering with the community. The reason why I started this maternity ward, I went to visit Chimaka one time, and there was a lady, may also rest in peace, she was called Solomon. She passed on 2 years ago. She was an elderly nurse who had been helping in delivering babies in Chimaka for years, and she was doing it in her home. So I went to see, and I said, in this era we still give birth on the floor. I have to change this. So I said, I'm going to build a maternity ward for you, Solomon, here. Today as we speak, because of that, also government had to put another bigger hospital. So it is now a city hospital at Health Center 4. And we decided to name it after Eskom.
But by virtue that Eskom came in, we constructed this, service delivery was improved. Number of staffs were increased. Now the services that we are not being offered are now being offered here. It is a very big investment. That's why I can put it that way.
Eskom has also been a part of a very large support system at Njero Primary School. This has been through the huge investments in renovations of the school and provision of scholastic materials.
Njero Primary School is an old school. Now from those early 70s to 2000, since the roof had really gone very old. It started leaking, the structure some became very old. The community at large has benefited because, one, when you look at the cost that Eskom has really invested in this school, it will take a community almost over 60 years to meet what Eskom has made.
Giving training to over 5,000 women and girls in the war-affected area of Gulu, killing them in the areas of tailoring, hairdressing and others to sustain their incomes and support their families.
Before I started this center, I was being abducted with Joseph Kony. When I was young, I was still in the village. So when I came back, I found myself that I cannot continue to study because I found my parents has been killed. Then I went to this tailoring course. Then I started this center. This center started in 2005 with only few students, 5. And we are training these students with only 1 sewing machines at the veranda. So later on, 2008, Eskom got us where we are training these women. 2009, they started constructing this place. 2010, April, they hand over the center to us. Then from 2010, after handing over, they did everything. The power was there, all the furniture, all the toilet system, water. They did everything for us. Every year, Eskom continue giving us support and they keep on visiting us.
I learned what I've come to learn as a hairdresser. So right now I have the skill for plaiting hair. My word to Eskom is I would like to appreciate them for their wonderful work towards our lives.
But of course, all this has not come easy.
There've been a number. Firstly, from a technical point of view, because the power stations, of course, were old. They were built before the computer era, with analog equipment, beautiful equipment. But over time, of course, that becomes obsolete, and we've needed to upgrade the plant and to modernize it. So that has been a problem. Not a problem, but a challenge which we've taken on, and that has taken place. If you visit the power station, you'll see that certain of those old monitors are still in service. We've kept them there, just once again from a historic perspective. They really are beautiful. They print on paper rather than show things on screen. But as I said, the critical systems are all modern, unfortunately, but we've left just 1 or 2 as museum pieces in the plant. So that's been a big challenge, is to upgrade the plant. Secondly, there's been a technical problem which occurs with wet concrete, which we've needed to address. I think it's referred to as the cancer of concrete. It's probably the alkali silica reactions which we've seen, and unfortunately that Nabobali which we needed to address, which has been, but that was cause for concern. It's not a simple matter, but pleased to say that Nalubale and Kira now are okay on that front, but that gave us a few headaches along the way.
As Eskom ends its 20-year concession, it walks out with its head held high. It contributes over 30% of Uganda'S electricity with an average plant availability of 96.3% since it started running the 2 power plants. It's not been an easy task, but it's a mandate well executed and fulfilled.
When we look at the 20-year period over which Eskom has run the concession, it's been very pleasing to see that the performance of the 2 power stations has improved consistently from where they were in 20 years ago. And at the time of handing the assets over, the availability of those 2 power stations was at 99%, which is almost unheard of. So particularly for power stations of that age, so very, very satisfying and pleasing to see that.
We had an independent engineer, which was Hedge of Canada, who was required to assess the condition of the assets and make a determination in terms of how prudently have we maintained them. And they've concluded that Eskom has operated and maintained those assets prudently. And also they estimated that these plants can still run for the next 30 years, especially in Nalubale.
I want to really thank the management of Eskom Uganda Limited, headed by the MD Tozama. Like Tozama has told you, we have had a very good working relationship. Many people are saying they have never seen a smooth transfer from the private sector to public sector. I think Uganda is going to be one of the case studies. Tozama, we want to thank you so much and to appreciate Eskom for the last 20 years of service they have put into this complex.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. As required by the Concession and Assignment Agreement, we would also like to extend these two documents, which is the independent engineer assessment on the condition of Nalubale and Kira Power Station, and also the environmental assessment document of Nalubale and Kira Power Stations.
So I have the honor to hand over to you these documents which confirm the status of these two plans to you, which will tell you that these were okay and you must maintain them like that.
And I can assure Ugandans is that we have a very good, competent young workforce. They are trained, they know what to do, they will be able to take these plans forward.
So, as I said, the handing over and the parting, it's a parting of friends that will visit each other, that will meet again in future.